Well, hello everyone, and Merry Christmas to everyone watching. I know this is coming out on Christmas Day. You're all probably busy, but I'm very hopeful that you'll just take a little time to listen to another interview from our wonderful writers of Trans Advent, which has been such a wonderful journey to read and to experience alongside the wonderful words and experiences of all the writers of Trans Advent. And we have a very special guest and writer, and Unbound is a ministry under the Presbyterian Church USA. And some people might not know that, but now you do. But this devotional was very ecumenical, but it is a ministry under the Presbyterian Church USA. And Erin Swenson, you could tell all the people about your experience of the church. But Erin, it is such a great honor and blessing to meet you. Erin is a now retired, but Presbyterian minister. And it is such a wonderful, wonderful blessing to get to talk to you a little bit. We've talked before on A Matter of Faith, a podcast that we do a while ago, but it's such a great blessing to see you again. So, Erin Swenson, tell all the people about yourself out there.
Oh, thank you, Lee. Do you have a week? It's really great to be here. I'm really honored to be asked to contribute to the devotionals for Unbound, and I'm honored that you asked me to do Christmas Day.
Yeah.
So whoever is watching this, I hope that you're having a good day and not watching this because you don't have anything else to do.
Yeah.
I'm, as Lee said, I'm retired. I'm a Presbyterian minister. I was ordained in 1973, which was 52 years ago. It's hard to believe, but it was 52 years ago. And I served for almost 23 years before a reality that had been bugging me for my whole life since I was a child became unbearable. And I did something that I had sworn to myself that I would never do, and I transitioned from male to female, and it was a wonderful thing for me. It was a harder thing for the church. In the 1990s, the church wasn't very well acquainted with transgender. It wasn't in the news very much, and when it was typically a pretty difficult kind of experience for viewers, because the transgender experience was often portrayed as something to be avoided, and it was hard. It was a very hard time. But I told the church that I wanted to transition. We looked it up and realized that nobody had ever done that. That there had been ministers who transitioned, but they had typically left the ministry in order to complete a transition, sort of believing that that was not something that a minister should do. I couldn't do that because in the Presbyterian Church, my health insurance was connected to my ordination. And if I were to give up my ordination, I would be giving up my health insurance immediately.
Yeah.
And Sigrid and I have two wonderful daughters, the younger of which is severely disabled from birth and requires a lot of medical care and lots of expense. And the idea of making a go of it without any insurance was not even thinkable for me. So I decided I had to drag the church through my gender transition And I did, and the church was, did a good job. They looked at it carefully. The committee said, yes, let's do that. And we went to the Presbytery meeting, and I just simply asked them for a change of name. My name had been Eric Karl Swenson, and I asked them to change it to Erin Katrina Swenson in view of a gender transition. And they balked. One of the conservative members of the Presbytery stood up and said that he had researched it and could find that nobody else had ever done that before, and that therefore the church needed to spend more than a couple of months from a committee on ministry meeting to do that. And so they sent it back to the committee. It was there for about a year and a half, during which time the committee became more and more negative about my continued ordination, which was frightening for me, of course. And at the same time, something wonderful happened. I didn't think it was wonderful at the time. The minister who had opposed my ordination had brought the editor for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the daily papers in the Atlanta area. He brought her to the meeting. She called me up the next day, and she said that they were going to do an article on me and on my request of the Presbytery, and did I want to have an interview? And I very naively said, Billy, your name is Billy Cheney Speed, and I said, Billy, please, I don't want to have an article about me. I thought that I had control over that. And she said, well, no, this is a public thing. The world knows about it, so it belongs in the public domain, and you can cooperate with an article or not. You can do that. You don't have to cooperate with us. But anyway, the article happened. It came out on Labor Day weekend of 1995, and what happened was an older woman called me in the middle of the week and said that she had seen the article in the paper and that she wanted to talk to me. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to get an earful of lecture from this woman. And then she said, I'm one of the first people to go through the gender reassignment program at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. And I noticed that you had seen Dr. Money as a part of your treatment, and I had too. And I just needed to meet you. And so we did. We met. I thought it was an amazing experience. This was an older woman. She was in her late 60s. And she told me this wonderful story of transitioning and getting married. And her husband had died after a fairly lengthy marriage. And she had settled in this retirement community right next to a Presbyterian church.
Wow.
And she said that the church was wonderful. They accepted her with open arms, and she was a pianist. She was a musician. And so she provided piano for everything in the church that didn't require an organist. So she played for church night suppers and for youth groups and for men's breakfasts and all kinds of stuff. She said she was well known in the church. And I was so happy. I said, Ida, who I call her Ida in my book, Ida, I have never met a fellow transgender Presbyterian. You're the very first. And she looked at me, and she got sort of a faraway look in her eyes, and she said, "Oh, but I'm not a Presbyterian." And I said, "Ida, what do you mean? You just told me that you were practically a charter member of this Presbyterian church. How could you possibly not be a Presbyterian?" And she said, "Well, I didn't really think that God wanted me to join the church.
Hmm.
And I said, "Why is that, Ida?" And she said, "Well, because of who I am, what I am, that God wouldn't want someone like me to be a member of the church." She said,
Hmm.
"That's why when I saw an article in the newspaper about a Presbyterian minister who was like me, I just had to meet you." And,
Yeah.
um, at that moment, I received a call, another call to the ministry. I
Yeah.
realized for the first time that there were so many people that needed something from someone like me, and that I had gifts to offer. And
Yeah.
so, that's what I did. I offered them.
Yeah.
It's been a great experience, a wonderful ride, as they say.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you did answer that call over and over. And, I think about you even in my own ordination process because, it's people like you and other members of the trans community and the queer community that lived into who they were called to be so that I could be ordained and as a queer person and continue to do that work and answer that call. So
That's
I am
wonderful. That is a
it is
wonderful
wonderful
story. Yeah.
and I think about all the people who yeah said that this is who they are and but we were also called to do what we do and stood in
Yes.
that. And so, yeah, I am so appreciative of you and your ministry and all that because we do stand on your shoulders and we so
Well,
appreciate um the
I'm
life and the
glad.
work and the ministry that you do. Yeah.
I'm very, very glad. Uh,
Yeah, we try. We try to live up to that. But as you were talking about, this is Christmas Day. And
yes.
Erin wrote a beautiful reflection and devotional about an experience with her dad. Um, and I think it was such a touching devotional and such a great message right now that Christmas is in many ways is a big paradox. And
Yeah.
I wonder if you could speak a little bit more about that, like as you were writing and as you were thinking about Christmas, what kind of things came up for you
Well,
in that kind of paradox world?
I remember the first Christmases after my transition when before my family was really able to embrace me. The very first one that I spent alone, uh,
Hmm,
it was it was difficult. Um, and I think, having the knowledge that there's somebody else out there who understands can help. Uh,
yeah,
I, um, and at times, and I understand that transgender people often feel hopeless at times like that. It's sort of like you can't possibly see your way through to a different life, and I felt that way too.
yeah,
Um, and the stories of transgender people who had been courageous and stood up, and uh, Renee Richards. I didn't have too many models when I was transitioning in the 90s. There weren't very many
yeah,
of them. Um, but it became very important for me to understand that things would get better, and they did. I mean, they got lots better very quickly. The next Christmas we had Christmas at my daughter's house, and I was invited, and um, we spent the day together. My dad came and stayed with me during the holiday season, and my younger daughter came and stayed with us. It was great, and
yeah,
I think the presence of other people is very important. Family is important, and so very often many of us lose our families as a part of our gender transition. And I think it's extremely important that we pay attention to our own hearts and our own need for other people in our lives. And uh, and find a new family, create friends, find a place where you can be accepted and loved and nurtured. And you know, I can't I can't say how important that is. It really is extremely important to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And especially, it's not always been easy, but especially right now, there's the
Oh,
hate for trans people has exponentially kind of been fueled, um and because of state and federal legislations and just the rhetoric coming out of leaders and just awful things. And so I do know a lot of our trans siblings are just in need of some kind of word
oh.
right now, and holidays can be very hard, as you were saying. And so I do wonder what that word, coming from you, Erin, what is a word that you would send out to the trans community right now, and especially a time such as this?
Well, I think the most important thing is to be able to embrace myself. We don't
Mm,
talk about that very much, but it's very important to be able um, to feel love and enjoyment and appreciation for who I am and what I am. And
yeah,
I think that's essential. Um, it's hard sometimes, and I think with all the hate language that comes out of the press, you have to remember that those are people who have hated us all along, and they
yeah,
have and they've hated us because they're ignorant. They don't know us. Um, I think of my work over the last 30 years as being devoted to teaching people who transgender people really are, and
mm,
that we are human beings, that we bleed, that we cry, that we laugh, that we care about other people and are capable of love. And I think that it's really important for us to remember that the ones who are out there, you know, saying all the ugly stuff, are people who, by and large, don't know any transgender people, or they have a
yeah,
political axe to grind, and it has really nothing to do with us. It doesn't have a thing to do with being transgender. It's got to do with it being so accessible for them that they can make other people feel scared of us.
yeah,
Um, and I think it's a very unfortunate thing to have happen, but it's how it is right now.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's so important, for us to be reminded um of living into who we are and
Yeah.
doing that work. And it's so important that, we keep doing that work. I always tell people, you never end the journey of self-discovery. You're always learning things about yourself. And if you think you will definitely figure out that you really don't. So
That's
I
right.
really
Yeah.
appreciate that reminder of being,
Yes.
you know, always being who you are and being authentic, and remembering that, there are people who might be ignorant, but there's also so many people who see you and see our trans siblings out there. And for me, there's no more joy than seeing people who live into who they are. And for me, that's such a gift. And I hope that during
Yes.
this Christmas season that, like, people can receive that as a gift to say, how wonderful of a gift during this time of year where you can see somebody live into who they are and how much joy that brings them. Like, there is
Right.
no better thing to see. So Erin,
And
it's
be
such
and
an
be
honor to
active.
talk to you.
Share
Yeah.
yourself with other people. I think, one of the things about being transgender is, you can't occupy yourself by being gendered. Being gendered is something that you are while you go about
Yeah.
life, while you go about doing other things. And that people need to be encouraged to get out there. And, when you say live into who you are, that means get about the process of living, caring about other people, volunteering
Yeah.
for organizations, going to a soup kitchen and help serve the unhoused community in your neighborhood, doing things that people need. That's how people get to see us and see who we are and understand who we really are, is watching us doing that, living into who we are. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this has been a blessing, and it's again, it's so good to talk to you, and thank you so much for writing, and thank you so much for doing this little interview with us. And for me, this is a great gift on Christmas to get to do this and to share this with you and for all the other writers of Trans Advent. So thank you, Erin, so much.
Thank you, Lee, and thank you for what you do with Unbound and uh,
Yeah.
and in your ministry. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. And just to remind folk that you can find Trans Advent at justiceunbound.org/Trans Advent. You can find all the devotionals. You can find these writer interviews, and you can find all the things attached. There's a printable version. There's an Advent calendar that highlights the trans saints and trans organizations that you should all know and learn about. And so again, check it out, justiceunbound.org/Trans Advent. And we will be back with you again for our last interview of this wonderful devotional with our writer from not the last, that's a lie. I have two more after this. But anyway, just check it out. These will also be on our YouTube channel, and all the links will be in our description. So thank you all again, and we'll see you again for another writer interview.